So, welcome everyone in the salon and those in front of their screens. I will be talking about how to create a left-shifting company culture in terms of security. So, most of you must Googled me or looked at me at the LinkedIn. I don't want to just dive into my past, but I am the senior security professional selected by the ISC Square at the EMEA region last year, and I also was awarded by the Internet 2.0 conference as an outstanding leadership because of my accomplishments. So today I will make you think about the topic I'm going to share. At the end of the meeting or the presentation, you may like it, you may agree to disagree, or you completely object it. And that will means that I will achieve my objective. So, how many of you think about the cyber incidents occurred? The real reason, like misconfiguration, human factors, software vulnerabilities, attacks, malware, right? They all are tech related. But the real behind of those incidents are the lack of business perspective in the cyber security strategies of the organizations. So, threats are real. So are the adversaries and the threat actors. Even in our most vulnerable moments, like the COVID era, where we are locked in our homes and trying to figure out what's going on, the threat actors were exploiting our vulnerabilities to gain their own agenda. And that's how they cruel are. And this is the new digital reality. Every tech has an inherent security problem. It tags along the cybersecurity with itself. Either it's a vulnerability in the tech, or the tech itself is going to be used as a weapon against us. And if you ask me what my take from cybersecurity is, or my daily life is, it's an endless chase or a new episode of Tom and Jerry or like the Roadrunner show. It's an endless and relentless chase between the threat actors and their targets. And why do we fail then? Why we are the failing part? Because cyber world is always in motion. Our data is always in motion. Our assets are always in motion. And so should be our cybersecurity strategies. Cybersecurity is basically a continuum of events. It's not something like installing a technology and leaving it as and feeling like safe. That's not the case. And there are lots of standards, national and international ones, regulations, legislations to follow. And we need cybersecurity experts to decode them for us, right? We have regulations, standards, or legislations in avionics, railway systems, connected car, IoT, infrastructures, cloud security, you name, and even AI. And the list goes on and on. And it's really hard to implement those standards. And because of the lack of qualified personnel, it's not easy to sustain the operations. And unfortunately, many organizations think that cybersecurity or interpret the cybersecurity as a tick in a checkbox on a spreadsheet in an assessment. And that's where most of the organizations fail to improve their cyber resilience. And I think the most fundamental reason is that organizations lack of a cybersecurity governance strategy. So the term cybersecurity is a linguistic perception, right? It sounds technical. Sounding so, it creates a feeling that it's highly and heavily tech-related. And it's a 100% IT problem to handle. But on the contrary, It's not only a tech problem, it's a business problem. It should be addressed and handled at various business levels, starting from the organizational strategy to culture, down to operations. Here is a real-life experience. Let's say HR decided to move a SaaS application, and they reach out to IT, the security department, and they deliver a nicely crafted, designed awareness training. And HR understands the importance of creating a strong password and using multi-factor authentication. And then IT returns if they did a good job and check everything is in order. However, after HR starts using the application, there is no enforcement from the IT to follow up. They could easily switch to a simple password, or they can disable the multi-factor authentication. You can't do anything until the next cycle of the evaluation. So, to me, secure by design is a security-enabled business model. It has 3 pillars: the people, process, and technology. And these 3 are bound together with organizational elements to form a secure organizational strategy. And how secure by design and shifting security left are related. Let's start with an example, a simple software example. So all the problems, all the defects, all the bugs, all the vulnerabilities are introduced into a software project at the very early stages. And as the and no matter what you're using as the software development methodology, except it's a secure one, right? So as the software development progresses, it becomes harder to detect and identify those defects. And most of the time, you realize half of them, but the other half goes undetected into the deployment, and we end up using defects, inherent defects in our softwares. And on the other hand, like the cost amount to fix a bug increases parabolically towards the release stage. And there are even some cases that we are faced, the amount you're going to fix those problems exceeds the project budget. So, this is where shifting left comes in. In technical terms, it means that please invite the security teams to the table as early as possible in the project, not at the end of the project and ask them, what should we do? And that's the case when you usually blame the security guys to be stubborn, pain in the neck, and coming up with preposterous security requirements. And secure by design is the implication of that technical in terms of business. Secure by design creates competitive advantage. Let's say, you can proudly say, my product is secure by design and secure by default. And it's a valuable marketing topic. And it also increases the quality of your project because you are making security an integral part of your design and development processes. And it increases the efficiency because at the very early stages you identify the defects and you fix them, and it lowers your cost. So, cybersecurity today is a core business function to any organization that uses tech or develops tech. This is inevitable. Every question, starting from the executive level down to the operational level, must have a security in the questions, right? And don't forget, a successful security strategy is the one that is owned by the executive level and accepted by the operational levels. So how we can achieve this? And our way passes through company culture. A company culture is like a shared values of beliefs, metrics, assumptions, goals, and you can increase the list. Some of them are visible, some of them are invisible, and some of them are easy to change, the visible ones, and those are invisible are hard to change. And luckily, cybersecurity falls into both categories. And if you want to success in a cultural change, in digital transformation, in terms of security, you must triumph in both categories, and I wish you all good luck in that. So, most organizations are formed with cross-functional teams, right? And even the security team absent, there is a problem with the cross-functional teams. The problems originate generally with the miscommunication or the lack of communication channels between them. And if you want to introduce cybersecurity teams as an integral part of the cross-operational teams, you should be establishing open and clear communication channels between them. Because the lack of communication channels creates a blame culture, and the blame culture is the small snowball that creates the avalanche. We don't want that in our company, right? So, to achieve this, we need a management model. You know, there are top-down and bottom-up models, but to success in security, to success in making security part of your culture, you need a hybrid approach. In that way, you're just introducing the benefits of these two models by making the management part of your teams, establishing a clear and open communication channels while keeping the teams making informed decisions and feeling them engaged and don't killing them their creativity. That's important. So, and we came to stakeholders, and when I say stakeholders, I include the supply chain as a member of the stakeholders. And to success with this trustworthy stakeholder relation, you should make security as part of your elements, key elements, actually. And while setting up the communication channels between the cross-functional teams, it is important to align them in terms of security goals, responsibilities, and purposes. And it's only available, it's only achievable when you make the security accessible in your company. If you just build walls around the security and make it inaccessible, you create shadow IT, and people are trying to just move around the security precautions you're installing, right? And to do so, to be successful, demonstrate your teams what good looks like, instead of using a negative language. Don't do that. Please avoid using the don't and does not and should not languages. And don't forget, again here, blame culture creates poor security. So, I think I am sparing some time for the questions, if you have any. And final markups. A cyberware, we cannot win a cyber war with outdated security mindset, strategy, and technology. And this is not from Sun Tzu's Art of War, but I inspired from it. So, and change is imminent. Change before you have to. And don't forget, in cybersecurity, you must unlearn some certain things to learn new things, because our world is constantly changing. And last remarks is from Mr. Einstein, that we need a different mindset to solve the problems, specifically in cybersecurity. So that will be all with my session. thank you all for your precious time and listening to me. Any questions? Yes, please. Sorry? No, I meant the security standards that we should follow are not easy to understand and implement. I don't say that don't follow these and that, but we have to. It comes because of the domain we are working. It's mandatory, or it's an organizational strategy that the upper management mandates us following some certain things, like ISO 27001. Sorry?
So what you're suggesting is that we can start off with those standards and then continue to build upon that?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So because like even two companies, let's say two organizations, working in the same domain and basically producing the same product, a slight change in the risk appetite completely changes the picture. And it changes the technical requirements to implement the processes, the procedures, and the company culture that you want to create in those companies.
Sure. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, please.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
I would like your take on a specific question.
Yay, I achieved.
So the question here is, I work in the area of cyber insurance.
Yeah.
And one of the things which is widely accepted is a significant portion of the risks, upwards of 85%, comes from human error.
Yeah.
And technology has a very small part to play in that. So you talked about corporate governance. We are talking about, security by default, security by design.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah, but how can we incorporate that as per your thing? You talked about a hybrid approach also, but maybe you can elaborate a little bit more. Do you think you should have a bottom-up approach or a top-down approach? Because another fact which is steadily gaining ground, and I'm also part of OJEC, which is an international organization which coined the word GRC. Mm-hmm. And there's an intense debate which is happening is the top-down approach is failing.
Okay.
So the bottom-up approach is probably the right approach, because one of the things which is missing is rewards.
Yeah.
Employees or anybody is not rewarded for good behavior.
Yeah.
Right? So what is your take on that?
So thank you for the question. So the human factor is the hardest part to solve. That's why I am focusing on to address the company culture to solve that problem. So every one of us are digital citizens, right? As soon as we buy a new phone and we subscribe to an email address, we become a member or a citizen, a larger network around the globe. And in this world, cybersecurity, the personal hygiene in terms of cybersecurity, we cannot turn our backs to that, right? It starts from the individual itself. So to achieve success in lessening the human factor errors, it becomes, we should start from training the individual as a person, and I think it should be a government's, the government should be addressing. And back in Turkey, there are curriculums taught at the schools to kids how to be safe and secure online, right? It starts from there. And when those individuals grow and become a member of a company or an organization, they inherently know what is secure and what is not secure. And you have a company culture to follow in terms of security, and they can easily adapt to that. But to those like me, as a who is a digital immigrant, it's really painful, because we have to. I cannot teach my mom and dad that please use strong passwords, and they refuse it. And I remember this easily and go with that. So it's originating from there. I guess I addressed your thing. And what we did in our company is that to success in that digital transformation, I specifically built a framework for my company to transform and grasp the secure by design idea throughout the company. And we designed training sessions, and we focused on each individual groups. Like the training of the software groups is training different than the procurement department, and addressing them individually is the bottom-up one. And from the top down, we engaged with the upper management, and we presented them our findings in terms of what we identified in the products we are producing. And the thing they asked me is that, do you have a solution for that? And I told them my framework, and they understand it, and then they give me the green light to go with it. So that's why we should be using the top, bottom, and the bottom up, a hybrid model. And it should be customized to whatever organization you are going to implement it. It's not like one size fits all. Yes, please.
I have a quick question. So what's your take on using open source solutions to existing projects? I know a lot of organizations that use open source solutions, and they bring their own share of bugs and defects, and it's impossible to, for example, for this organization to solve the open source bugs, as they have their own issues. And so is it better for them to develop their own custom inbuilt solution that does what the open source project does, or would it be better just import the open source and worry about that later? Thank you.
Okay, so open source is another perception, right? And when you see open source and you say, hey, it's secure. Why? Because there are lots of eyes looking into it, and it's like easy to find the defects, right? It's some sort of partially true, I agree. But whether it's an open source thing that you're using, or you're developing something in-house, or you're outsourcing whatever your need is, all three has a main fundamental problem, and it's sustainability. When you go with the open source projects, the question raises from like, if the support is cut, what should I do? And if you go to outsourcing, are they secure? And when you just try to build in-house, and then you will be having hard discussions with the upper management for the funding, for finding the qualified personnel to sustain the environment. So that's an availability problem in terms of security. And so it was funny that one of our customers asked us to use open source solutions, and we designed the system with open source solutions, and they replied that, oh, you used a lot of open source tools. And I said, is there a limit, like 5, 10, 20? It's interesting, right? So, but it's the main thing is that do you find the qualified personnel to sustain whatever solution you are using? I think no more questions. Okay, thank you again for your precious time.